West Virginia has had one of the craziest off seasons I can remember. After coming off a 19-15 season with a first-round loss to Maryland in the NCAA tournament, they had one of the best starts to an offseason I think I've ever seen. Their head coach Bob Huggins was entering his 17th season at the school. West Virginia was able to retain most of their core coming back into the 23-24 season, and they lined up the second best transfer class in the country. And then in May, it all started falling apart. Remember to like and subscribe to the channel.
You see the time. Wittenberg. Oh, it's a long ways.
Draymond Green finds Lucius for the win. He got it.
One timeout, they don't take it.
He got it. Oh, it's a buzzer.
Gets it in. Booker gets it off. This one's good if it goes. Oh, goodness. Hell.
After assembling the roster for next year, Bob Huggins started falling apart. That's the best way to describe it. During an interview appearance on Bill Cunningham's WLW radio show in Cincinnati, Bob had some very choice words for Xavier, Catholics, and a few homophobic slurs. I'm not sure what the man was thinking, but it wasn't good, and he was just lucky not to be fired at that point. After apologizing, it was announced his salary would be reduced from $4.2 million to $3.2 million, and he'd be suspended for the first 3 games of the season. After that, everyone kind of figured, at least I did, that we wouldn't hear from him until the season started and he was on the court, and then news broke of his arrest in Pittsburgh. According to police, his car was stuffed with empty beer bottles. He was stopped in the middle of the road, obstructing traffic. The driver's side door was open. His car had a flat, shredded tire, and he blew a .21. Now, Huggins was added to the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame last year. Off the court issues aside, Huggins was obviously a good coach. He made 24 NCAA tournaments in his career, including 23 of the last 26 seasons. He's won over 300 games at 2 schools, where he averaged 23 wins a season for his career. He also produced some good in his community. The annual Bob Huggins Fish Fry has been held 11 times, most recently on January 27th of this year, to raise money for charity. The event has raised more than $16 million for charities, including the Norma May Huggins Cancer Research Endowment Fund, named after Huggins' mother, and the Remembering the Miners organization. For every win West Virginia had against Kansas, Huggins' contract stipulated he got a $25,000 win bonus, which he donated to the Norma May Huggins Cancer Research Endowment Fund. And then more recently, after the terrible radio interview, he made a substantial donation to support Xavier's Center for Faith and Justice and the Center of Diversity and Inclusion. There have been counter-arguments to his DUI. I mean, no one can refute what he blew on the breathalyzer. But according to his daughter, he offered to go to 60 days of rehab and stay on for this team that he recruited, and that offer was quickly refused. His daughter also claimed the beer cans all over the car were cans in bags, not just beer cans floating around the car. And there's a small group in Morgantown that knows her dad collects cans to recycle. But he was arrested with a very high BAC and cans in the car, so I'd be suspicious too. This also is not his first DUI. He had one back in 2004 while coaching at Cincinnati. Regardless, Huggins is gone now, very late in the cycle. And it wasn't exactly a hot year on the coaching carousel to begin with. Time immediately started ticking considering the current roster. The roster was filled with talented players that have already transferred, but thanks to a new NCAA rule, will open up a 30-day window after the coaching change, where they could easily enter their portal and deplete this roster for whoever does get the gig. So who really had a realistic shot of coming here? A few of the names originally thrown around were John Beilein. He was the last coach at West Virginia before Huggins. He had a run at Michigan and then a really bad stop in the NBA for the Cavaliers. He would not have been a long-term option, but he could have been a good stopgap in transition. Chris Mack was also available and had a stellar decade of work at both Xavier and Louisville, but the last 2 years at Louisville went awry and he wasn't able to survive the heavy pressure at the end. Still, he's a career 68% winner. In 13 years, made 9 NCAA tournaments. Mack would have been the kind of coach who could come in and kept this roster together. Since he hasn't been out of the game that long, he also would have been a better long-term option than Beilein and definitely more accomplished than most of the other people that are about to be named. The question would have been, could he have brushed off the final days of that Louisville stint and got back on his feet? As for current coaches whose names were thrown around, the suggestion of Pat Kelsey at College Charleston and Dusty May at Florida Atlantic were names that were brought up. I really doubted that Dusty May would leave Florida Atlantic. With the roster he has coming back, I think he's holding out for a true blue blood team. But Kelsey was a Cincinnati native, and he had a good roster coming back to College Charleston, but I could have seen potential of him getting lured away to West Virginia. Former Huggins assistant Jared Calhoun was also mentioned. He may have been a fan favorite if he returned. Andy Kennedy, who replaced Huggins once before at Cincinnati, also came up. The biggest issue with Kennedy is his past legal issues, though, including an assault arrest in 2008. So considering the misconduct is the reason why Huggins is gone, that probably ruled him out as a candidate. While all these names were being tossed around, rumors started to come out that Bob Huggins, through direct communications with players and donors, was actively sabotaging the hiring of Beeline. They started a phone chain explicitly saying they won't support the program anymore if Beeline's hired, and demanded Kennedy be hired, who the program probably didn't want because of the previous issues. Then apparently Huggins got into a feud with Joe Mazzulla, a former player and the head coach of the Boston Celtics, of who should take over. Reportedly, Huggins wanted Kennedy and Mazzulla wanted Calhoun. Both men were encouraging their connections to say, "my guy," or no more money to the school. Then there are rumors that some players were using the portal in an attempt to force the school into hiring who Huggins wanted, and that Huggins himself may be even encouraging that. At this point, guards Keir Kershaw and Joe Toussaint had entered the portal, along with Trey Mitchell. Finally, West Virginia announced Josh Ehlert had been named interim head coach. Ehlert had been in West Virginia since 2007, where he served as a video coordinator, director of basketball operations, and last season as an assistant coach. I do feel bad for West Virginia's AD, who got destroyed by the Good Old Boy Network this go-round, and I wonder if that'll hurt his hiring power in the future. But in reality, this is probably one of the better shots they have at keeping the team together. And that's going to be an uphill battle. Trey Mitchell just announced he's going to Kentucky. The 6'9", 4-star transfer didn't want to hang through the coaching transition, and he's gone to the SEC. On the same day, Mohamed Wague and James Okonkwo entered the transfer portal, but guard Keir Kershaw did withdraw his name and stay at West Virginia. And Kershaw was very vocal to the West Virginia AD apparently, with his support for the hiring of the assistant, Josh Ehlert. So if by some miracle they get the rest of the guys who are in the portal to come back, who would West Virginia have next season? In the backcourt, West Virginia could have fifth-year guard, 6'5", Raquan Battle, who started his career at the Washington Huskies before going to the Montana State Bobcats and now West Virginia. He averaged 17.7 points, 2.9 rebounds while shooting 47% from the field and 35% from three-point range last season, and has 1 year of eligibility left. West Virginia needs a bucket getter to replace Eric Stevenson, and they may have found him in Battle. He didn't really pop until last season. He's a very good athlete who uses his physical tools on both ends. He's a plus shooter who can knock down shots off the bounce. He thrives in transition due to athleticism and finishing ability. Versatile defender with high upside on that end due to his size, length, and athleticism. Junior guard 6'3" Kobe Johnson played in 29 games last season, starting 4 of them. He was a low-volume three-point shooter, going 2 for 10 for the season, averaged 2 points per game and half an assist on 10.4 minutes a game. Coming out of high school, Johnson was seen as an elite scorer who can score at all levels. He has a smooth stroke and appears natural and consistent, which allows him to shoot the ball from behind the arc at a high percentage. Johnson can attack the rim, but his strength is being a jump shooter. Defensively, Johnson is much better than given credit for. His offensive game overshadows his defensive production. He's got very active hands, moves his feet well, keeps the ball in front of him. Going into his junior year, it would be really sweet to see him grow into the shooting ability and really contribute. Now that he's announced he's staying, 6'3" guard Keir Kershaw comes to West Virginia from Arizona. He was ranked as the 51st best player in the portal after averaging 9.9 points, 5.1 assists, and 2.4 rebounds per game for an Arizona squad that entered as the number 2 seed in the NCAA tournament. He led the Pac-12 in assists and shot 36.6% from three-point range. Him announcing he's coming back is a big get for West Virginia and starting to keep this roster together, and hopefully others follow him. Fifth-year guard, 6'5", Jose Perez comes in from Manhattan College. He began his career at Gardner-Webb University before going to Marquette and then Manhattan, now West Virginia. Perez was actually on the team last year, but because of having used his one-time transfer by rule, Perez was forced to sit out this season. In the season before coming to West Virginia, Perez averaged 18.9 points, 3.2 rebounds, and 4.5 assists. Fifth-year 6'3" guard Omar Silvero began his career at Rhode Island before going to Hofstra and then Manhattan College. Now he's finally landed at West Virginia. Silvero noted that he and Perez are childhood brothers, which certainly explains one of the ties that have brought him here to West Virginia. He averaged 10.9 points per game, with three-point shooting providing 219 of his 348 points during the 21-22 season. He sat out the 22-23 season after his head coach was fired, and was told that following his head coach's firing that a waiver to play elsewhere for that season would not be supported by Manhattan College due to the fact that he was not at Manhattan long enough. He has 1 year of eligibility remaining. Unfortunately for West Virginia, 5th-year guard, 6' Joe Toussaint already has visits lined up for Kansas State and Texas Tech. Toussaint is considering a return to West Virginia with the news of Elert getting the job. He is, however, still weighing his options in the portal. Some other big schools who have contacted him are Georgetown, Gonzaga, Notre Dame, Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, Pitt, and a few others. In 34 games with West Virginia, Toussaint averaged 9.4 points, 2.8 rebounds, and 2.6 assists per contest, and shot the ball at 37%, including 32% from 3. I'm not sure where he's going to land at this point. He's got some big-name schools calling his number. For West Virginia's sake, I hope he does come back, but I could definitely see one of those bigger schools with a more established head coach pulling him in. Junior guard 6'1" Seth Wilson played in all 34 games, starting none of them last season. He doubled his scoring his sophomore year from his freshman year, up to 4.2 points and 41% from 3, while shooting 39% from the field. Wilson likes to attack the glass on both ends of the floor and doesn't mind throwing his body around against some of the bigs. He's a very consistent three-point shooter, but has a very elongated shooting motion that will need to be sped up so that he can be a more efficient scorer at the collegiate level. Wilson also looks smooth posting up on the block and hitting turnaround fades from the block. In the front court, Syracuse transfer 5th year, 6'11" Jesse Edwards was ranked as the 3rd best player in the transfer portal this year. He averaged 14.5 points, 10.3 rebounds, and 2.7 blocks last season for Syracuse. He has 1 year of eligibility remaining. Edwards averaged a double-double while pulling double teams often in ACC play, as teams fought to guard him. He brings in his sharp moves around the basket, soft touch, strong hands, and floor running abilities. His skills have always been there. He's athletic, has a 7'4" wingspan, and can block shots, finish around the rim, and win one-on-one post matchups. I expect him to be the starter next year for West Virginia. Sophomore forward, 6'7", Josiah Harris, only played in 17 games his freshman year. Harris quickly earned praise at his freshman year for his work beyond normal team practices. Having all hours access to the practice facility is a luxury to take advantage of. Harris is the size of a forward but plays like a guard. He can score at all 3 levels. Harris can drive to the rim and score while spreading out the floor and testing his range from 3. With as much as he's touted as a gym rat, I'd expect healthy growth in his game coming into next year. If he returns, junior forward James Okonkwo, who hails from Maidenhead, England. Last year he played in 31 games, averaging 11 minutes, 2.5 points, and 3.2 rebounds, while he shot 57% from the field. His final season of hoops in the United Kingdom was cut short due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The parents of his teammates used to record games, so during quarantine he edited some of his highlights together and uploaded them to YouTube. There were no AAU or travel teams for him to play on when he was starting his career in the United Kingdom. It was just 1 game per week for his local squad. He's a good rebounder and shot blocker, and I expect to see him continue to improve. Junior forward 6'8" Patrick Sumik played in 21 games last season, averaging 5.4 minutes with 1.4 points and 1.3 rebounds a game. Sumik came in committed to being the next glue guy at West Virginia. He's just someone that wants to be versatile and bring energy. I'd expect to see him as an off-the-bench possible role player. And finally, forward 6'10" junior Mohamed Wague, who did just enter the transfer portal. He played in 28 games, averaging 4.1 points, 3.1 rebounds, while shooting 74% from the field. He has 2 years of eligibility left if he chooses to return to West Virginia. So that's the roster as it stands while I'm recording this, but with the coaching change, nothing's set in stone. Tapping the assistant coach to be the interim could potentially give them a really good chance of holding this team together. This offseason has been an absolute roller coaster for fans. They've had the highest of highs and lowest of lows, and now in June they really have no idea what to expect. Looking at this roster though, there's a lot of upperclassmen talent. If that is the roster that does come play for West Virginia next year, I would have medium to high expectations. You just don't know what you're going to get from a first-year coach. If I was a West Virginia fan, I would just be crossing my fingers and hoping for some sort of miracle Cinderella run. But losing a coach this late in the cycle, to all these players entering their transfer portal, to honestly having no idea what's going to happen next year, onto the storm that's happened over the last few days, it might make it hard to get behind that team. I just hope for West Virginia's sake that this entire storm that they just weathered does not hamper their ability to hire an established head coach in the future if they decide to go outside the program at the end of the season. Seriously, Mountaineer fans, hang in there. I'm rooting for you. Best of luck.